Hello and welcome to Newsroom. We're live from Islamabad and I'm Sharmeen Ali. President Trump yesterday announced his Middle East peace plan along with Prime Minister of Israel Benjamin Netanyahu as well as his opponent General Benny Gantz. And that peace plan, he said, is a big step towards peace according to President Trump. And this has been seen as by Palestinian leaders as the most pro-Israel plan. And conspicuously missing in that press conference were leaders of the Palestinians, and there was no President Mahmoud Abbas. That was very conspicuous over there. We'll be talking about that and the details of this peace plan, which will most likely allow the Israeli settlements to remain in the West Bank, and among other things that are points of contention over there. We'll be talking about that in our program just now in a few moments. And also yesterday, the governor of the State Bank of Pakistan, Dr. Raza Bakir, announced that Pakistan has made very significant progress in the FATF, saying that out of the 27 points that Pakistan had to follow, it's been successful in most of them. Earlier, we saw in the last two reviews, Pakistan had to go through several more reviews and processes in order to get off the grey list. And now it seems that the chances of Pakistan getting off the grey list next month in February are significantly better. Also, the Board of Control for Cricket in India, although not objecting to Pakistan hosting the 2020 Asia Cup later on, has also asked for a neutral venue to be picked for the Indian players to go and be a part of this World Cup, because they do not feel that the Indian players will be able to come to Pakistan for this. We'll be talking about this now with our guests in our program. Let's begin with the first topic, which is a very, very big deal right now. People say that this is the deal of the century, and the people say this is the deal of the century, and President Donald Trump thinks it's a very big accomplishment for his administration right in the middle of his impeachment trial. The implications of this we're going to be just discussing now with our guests who are with us in our studio. We have with us Mr. Naseem Siddiqui, who is a senior analyst, and we also have with us Mr. Majid Mahmood, who is a Middle East expert. So let's have a look at this report and then we'll be talking about this with our guests.
The much-awaited peace plan for Israel-Palestine conflict has finally been announced, as U.S. President Donald Trump announced what he termed as a realistic two-state solution, with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu standing by his side in the White House. Trump said that Jerusalem will remain Israel's undivided capital, while offering the Palestinians East Jerusalem as theirs. Trump said the plan would double the Palestinian territories, with an indication that Israel is prepared to provide swaths of land near Gaza and the Egyptian border for a future Palestinian state. The plan offers recognition of Israeli sovereignty over West Bank settlements. When President Trump said no Palestinians or Israelis will be uprooted from their homes, he was suggesting that existing Jewish settlements in the Israeli-occupied West Bank will remain. Territory allocated to Palestinians will remain open and undeveloped for a period of 4 years. During this time, Palestinians can negotiate with Israel and achieve the criteria for statehood. Trump said the proposed plan does not compromise on Israel's security needs. But President Trump acknowledged that in order for his plan to have any hope of taking hold, he needs to do a lot for Palestinians, or it wouldn't be fair. A nod to the proposal of a Palestinian state and a $50 billion economic plan. The plan demanded Palestinians to turn their back on radical movements. And President Trump had a warning for Palestinians. Take it, or this could be the last opportunity Palestinians will ever have. The Palestinians have rejected the plan. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas said it was impossible for any Palestinian to accept a Palestine state without Jerusalem as its capital. As U.S. President announced his peace plan, he was surrounded by dozens of right-wing supporters of Israel. And the absence of the most important stakeholder in this conflict, the Palestinians, was conspicuous. Middle East observers see the proposed plan by President Trump as only catering to nearly every major Israeli demand. President Trump also failed to address the question of Palestinian refugees. The critics also termed the timing of this announcement as very important. It is being viewed as an attempt to bolster the position of Netanyahu just before elections, presenting him as a statesman who also happens to be facing charges of corruption and bribery at home. But despite being heavily skewed in Israel's favor than any previous American proposals to end the conflict, the plan still, however, called for the creation of a Palestinian state.
Right, so we're seeing that the major stakeholder in this whole peace deal was missing yesterday. As I said earlier, the Palestinian leadership was not there at this press conference. So thank you so much for joining us, Majid Mahmood Saab and Naseem Saab on our program. Majid Saab, I'd like your comments on this. President Mahmoud Abbas was not at this press conference or in the whole meeting deciding this. What is now going to happen going forward? Because it seems like it's a peace plan that's been decided by the Americans and the Israelis without the Palestinian people's consent.
Actually, if you see the details that have come out, it's hardly, it's a plan, but it's not a plan for peace. It's a plan for more chaos and instability in the Middle East, in a very sensitive area. So, what plan? If you are talking about the absence of the Palestinian leadership, this actually shows American arrogance and contempt towards the Palestinian Authority and the representatives of the Palestinian people. And this plan is about not building peace, but actually bulldozing the issue in favor of normalizing Israel in the overall Middle Eastern security scenario.
Right. Okay. So, Naseem Saab, let's get into the nitty-gritty of this plan that we're talking about. There's going to be the capital of Israel is going to be a united Jerusalem, yet the Palestinians will have a state with East Jerusalem as its capital. So, can you please elaborate a bit on this?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Sharmeen. Basically, as Majid said, that this is not a plan for the peace. This is a plan which they want to impose on the Palestinians. The Palestinians, they have right, it's their place. They want whole of the Jerusalem to be under the government of Palestine. But at the moment, they are trying to divide that part and giving one part to the Israel and saying that other part will be given to the Palestinians, for which Palestinians, they are not agreed at the moment. Because Palestinians, they are the major stakeholders and they have not been concerned, they have not been in the meeting at that time when they were announcing that one. So as they are doing their agreements and talks with Taliban here to bring peace in Afghanistan, they should have to go for the talks with Palestinian leaders and other stakeholders as well, like Hamas and other stakeholders. So they need to talk with them and they need to bring a conclusion on which both of the parties agree. Because
Right.
if President Mahmoud Abbasi is not agreeing on something, so they cannot just impose and give a plan for the future
Right.
of the
And
Palestinians.
he said that all Muslims will have access to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. They'll ensure that, and he called it the Al-Aqwa Mosque. And, you know, that was one of the funny points in that press conference. However, now what Naseem Saab is saying is that what we're seeing here in this whole issue is that there's an asymmetry that exists. And for this reason, you have this subjugated people, and then you have the other party is very, very powerful, and they're backed by the world's most powerful nation in the form of military aid, political aid, every kind of aid. So they're in a position to get their own way in everything, and yet you have these subjugated people who need to have their freedom. And is this being addressed in this plan at all?
No, it is not being addressed. But on the contrary, if you read the plans and if you have been following the Israeli illegal settlements in the West Bank, they have actually legalized Israeli annexation. Basically, they are telling them to annex those territories which were in the where the Israeli settlers, the Jewish settlers were in the West Bank. So, and the new map that has been released by the White House, the Palestinian state is virtually like a land archipelago. In which there are small islands, disconnected land island, disconnected, and
In the
there
West
are
Bank.
in the West Bank, and there are Israeli territories in between them,
and
around them.
And then there's
Yeah.
settlements within those areas of
Yes.
those patchy areas.
Yeah, that
Israeli
has
settlements.
that has also been legitimized by this American plan that they are offering as a
Right.
peace.
Because recently Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said that those settlements are not illegal. He just declared that.
Yeah, because the American urgency is, like I said, is to normalize Israel and normalize Israel's relationships with the Arab countries. So the Palestinian issue for the Americans was a major obstacle in that sense. So, in order to, counter Iran, and strengthen the Israeli relationship with the other, with all of its neighbors, including Saudi Arabia. So, if this issue is sidelined or it is bulldozed, and the solution is imposed from the outside, so in an American view, they see this as stability.
We'll discuss the repercussions of this. However, now when we talk about the Israeli settlements in that West Bank area, they will, according to this plan, they will remain, they will still exist, which means that Israel will still have the authority for security in that region, although it's a Palestinian state. How does that work?
Yes, this is the contradiction and the travesty of justice and legalization of that travesty, that now Israeli law will formally apply on those illegally occupied territories, and the Palestinian Muslims. I mean, they would be they were already left homeless in any case, but now they are divided within their own communities, and Israel has completed its the fencing of its areas, which has further strangulated the movement, the free movement of people from the Gaza area and in the West Bank itself. So Israel has created more difficulties and have made lives very much very difficult for the Muslims there.
Right.
Yeah, and just another point that you talked about the asymmetry. So on the one side, one aspect of it is that the Americans are backing the Israelis and certain European powers as well. There is also symmetry at the asymmetry at the regional level. When we have seen that the support for the Palestinian cause, the Muslim cause, it has seen major setbacks in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia. So the people would have to struggle themselves actually to resist this imposition of this plan.
Right, okay, because as you're mentioning the Middle East now, Turkey and Iran have condemned this very, very vociferously. But Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Egypt, Oman, they support President Trump's plan. But Sir Naseem Saab, now I'd like to ask you that a lot of commentators are saying that this is now tantamount to an apartheid state. In your opinion, either of you, would you like to comment on that?
Actually, people of Palestine will decide the fate of Palestine. It's not America who is going to decide it, or it's not Israel who is going to decide it, because in that meeting, in that press conference, there was only President of USA and the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, was present, and the main counterpart of Palestine, Mahmoud Abbas, was missing. So until and unless they all sat down and decide on something where Palestinians agree as well, where Israelis agree on one point as well, then they can give a plan. Otherwise, just condemning and giving authority for illegal occupancy, which Israel has already made on the land of Palestine. What is bone of contention at the moment? If you are not removing that part, that how can you give some plan for the peace? And as the President of Turkey, he said as well that they are not going to allow this change in the map of Israel at the moment. So three parties should sit down and they should decide.
Absolutely, because in order to ensure that the Palestinians still they have their freedom and equality, and not have an apartheid state where you have the state separating Muslims and coming down hard on them and being overly watchful over their activities, things like that.
But on the question of on the question of apartheid, I mean, the apartheid has been happening since 1948. When the entire existence of the Israeli state is illegitimate in that sense. So from 1948 till 2019, Israel has progressively strengthened this apartheid through brutal means, not only settlements but curbing the freedom of movements. Look at Gaza; it's an open prison. the world's largest open prison, and the other one is occupied Kashmir, of course. So these both India and Israelis, they are apartheid states from the beginning.
Right, okay. And now the offer that President Trump has given to the Palestinians, that they're going to give them $50 billion and 1 million jobs, etc., in order to uplift their economy and all of that, because we know that the Palestinians have suffered from a lot of poverty and unemployment. They're largely dependent on aid. Do you think the Palestinians might buy into this, Naseem Saab?
No, definitely not, because they are fighting for their land at the moment, and there is a lot of illegal occupancy by the Israelis at the moment. They have lost too many lives over there. The Palestinians, they have been serving the brutalities and atrocities of Israelis, so they are not going just after the money, and they will not take the offer which has been given by the President Trump at the moment, and definitely they will be going for the land, and they want their control on Jerusalem.
Right, and he also said that they'll remain underdeveloped for 4 years while they continue to have talks with the Israeli leadership.
Actually, this is a classic Trump-style political bribery, that to sell off the issue, we will offer you certain crumbs, and even most of that money in first place won't come, and secondly, if ever some development aid is there, it would be beneficial for America actually, that it would be controlling through Israel. So talking about elimination, this issue is not about elimination of poverty. The Palestinian issue is at the heart of the Muslim issue, and it's a Muslim issue. It's not an issue of poverty. It's an issue of an illegal occupation.
Right, and now since President Trump has come into office, the U.S. has closed its Palestinian Liberalization Organization office in Washington, D.C., and then it's withdrawn funds for the Palestinians as well, and it moved its embassy to Jerusalem. So this was sort of expected, that President Donald Trump is going to do something very pro-Israel, and he said that this is the deal of the century, he called it, and he basically gave an impression that it's a sort of take it or leave it. This is the only chance you're going to get to the Palestinians. So
Exactly. That's whatever he has said is like that. You are with us or not with us. Same thing as he did when there was 9/11. So yes, he's just trying. He's pro-Israeli. He's just going to ease the tension of Israel at the moment. So it's not a good offer for the Palestinians, because that's a matter of land for which Palestinians are fighting for a long time, and if he tries to bribe them with money, they won't go with that offer.
And this 80-page brochure that they've come up with, that hasn't been shared with the Palestinian leadership, has it? Or it's not been agreed to at all? Or?
Yeah, now they can read it from the White House website. I mean, but it has not been shared with them. The draft of the negotiations that have been happening between Jared Kushner and Netanyahu representatives in the back channels. It's a product of that. This document is a product of that negotiations, back channel. So, but the region, the people across the Muslim world, we have seen, and specifically in the streets of the Arab world, in here also, people have rejected this this plan outright. Even if certain segments would like to go for a compromise, the public opinion has rejected this this deal.
So when we talk about the asymmetry, I'd just like to go into that in a little more detail now. There's been violence and subjugation of the Palestinians since now, many decades, and it's become normalized. It's become the norm over there, and there's a lot of complacency in this regard. Now, some of the Israeli commentators, a lot of people on neutral sort of networks are saying that majority of Israelis want a two-state solution with the Palestinians. However, at the moment, that's not a burning issue for them, because things have been relatively calm. In the West Bank, they're under control. In Gaza, with the blockade, they've kind of been calmed down as well. So now it's not one of the main campaign slogans or one of the main factors, this peace process with the Palestinians and the elections that are coming up for Prime Minister Netanyahu, sir.
As I said earlier, that that's not been calm, because there is one good thing, that even America is thinking of bringing a solution for the peace in Palestine and Israel. That's the one good thing. But Palestinians, they have not agreed what they have decided on their part. because these two president and prime minister sat down and they have decided what to do. They haven't engaged Mahmoud Abbas, they haven't engaged other stakeholders from Lebanon. So things are calmed down for the moment, but the actual matter is still there. So they have to resolve that one first, and then when three of them will sit down and they will resolve it and they will agree on one point agenda, then the matter will go ahead.
Right. So as a concluding thought, Majid Saab, what do you think is a sort of an equilibrium that can be reached between the Palestinians and Israelis where both party sides are considered, and what is a possible solution for this whole conflict?
Well, if you see from the regional perspective, from the people of as seen from the people of Palestine Muslims, for them their own lands in the main Israeli land is also their land. So they want the reversal of the injustice that happened in 1948. So this is, I think, is the only way forward. America was in 1990s was talking about two-state solution. Now it is also talking about two-state solution, but it's a lip service. Most of the areas have been given to, including Jerusalem, to the Israeli occupation. So shorter than reversal of occupation, I don't see any peace coming in the region, and we are in about another round of escalation, in my view.
Right. Okay. So yes, a very serious and grave situation indeed, and especially for the Palestinian people. Let's hope that something good works out at some point. After the break, we're going to come back and talk about our next topic. Majid Saab, thank you so much for joining us on this as a Middle East expert. A lot of good feedback and information we've gotten from you. Naseem Saab, we'll continue with you in the next segment. Viewers, stay with us, please, and we'll be right back after the break. Welcome back. The governor of the State Bank, Dr. Raza Bakir, said yesterday on Tuesday that Pakistan has made significant progress towards getting off the FATF grey list. We'll be talking about that with our guests now in the studio. And Dr. Raza Bakir also said that in the last two reviews in May and September last year, Pakistan made significant improvements in the 27 points it was supposed to cover the recommendations made by the Financial Action Task Force. We have with us now in our studios Dr. Usman Chauhan, who's a political economist. Thank you, sir, for joining us on our program.
Thank you.
And Naseem Saab is with us already. The comments of Dr. Raza Bakir yesterday, There's a lot of talk now. Recently, there was a meeting in Beijing, and Hamad Azhar Saab, the Minister for Economic Affairs, he was there to present Pakistan's case. And everything that we're hearing right now seems like Pakistan's moving in the right direction. There were 27 points. Out of them, 5 were met earlier, and now the remaining 22 seem like we've also covered them pretty well. So, Dr. Saab, your feedback on this?
I believe that it is a good time to reflect on the progress that our country has made. It's been a collective effort. It's involved government and political will. It's involved cooperation from many agencies. And so on the many points that we had to cover, some progress has been made on all of them. The question is always, is it enough? Now, from what it seemed in Beijing, the signal is very positive. We have to wait till Paris in February to find out if there is a clear verdict. But the indications are positive this time around that there is at least some chance that we'll get off the grey list.
So we've been on the grey list since 2018, since President Donald Trump has come into power. These additional measures and demands sort of came up at that time, and many people say it's due to the relationship between the United States and India. However, at the same time, Pakistan and the United States are working together to bring about peace in Afghanistan, to bring about a peace deal there. So recently, when Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi visited Washington, this was also discussed, that help us to get off the grey list. Do you think that we've made any progress on the diplomatic front in that regard?
Yeah, definitely. As you said that it was imposed in 2018, then that was the legacy of the previous governments. So this government is really working hard on this one, and they have made significant changes, and they have proved in their meetings in May and September with the FATF, and now the meeting in Beijing was very positive. And as you said that Shah Mahmood Qureshi, he said in his presser as well that in Davos, Prime Minister Imran Khan talked with President Trump as well and asked him to help him to get out of that grey list from FATF, and that he promised as well. So because Pakistan is doing all the positive things, like as you said that to bring peace in the region, Pakistan is helping America to have dialogues with Taliban and Afghanistan government as well. So Pakistan is doing the positive things, and Pakistan has done significant changes in curbing the money laundering and terror financing as well. That was the main reason for imposing or bringing Pakistan into the grey list. So Pakistan is doing positive things at the moment, and hopefully with the help of America and with the positive things done by our finance ministry, so Pakistan will be getting rid of that grey list very soon.
Okay, so the steps that we've already taken, there have been so many of them. For example, investigations into accounts, etc., real estate transactions. Then there's also convictions is the one point that the FATF has been a little bit concerned about with Pakistan, and then there's also the creation of the financial monitoring unit. There are a lot of steps that we've taken, Dr. Saab, and I also think that, and then a lot of integration has taken place between our agencies, between our provinces, in order to achieve all this, and in a relatively short amount of time.
Yes, I would absolutely agree. It shows that when you have the willpower as a nation, the impossible becomes possible. I'm saying impossible because the requirements that were put down by the FATF in so short a span were so demanding, and yet we have made such progress on so many fronts. In addition to the financial monitoring unit, as you said, we have begun to regularize the seminaries. We have put the dispensaries under the health department. So what we're trying to do is go from an 18th century economy, which means that one where there's a large informal element, into a truly 21st century economy. And that's where we're showing that we're successful. It is in a large part a kind of signaling. We're signaling a strong commitment that we want to be a responsible player in the Committee of Nations and to have a functioning system that is integrated into the larger global financial architecture.
Right, and also a lot of documentation has taken, we were trying to document our economy, which has a lot of resistance, because suddenly there's a huge change for the public having to go through all this paperwork, which none of us are used to before. Even the legitimate transactions and all require like an arduous amount of paperwork. So, sir, I mean, we have to commend the public, I mean, and the institutions which are now requiring that you do this, and they're implementing it as well.
As you know that when PTI government came into power, they were having fiscal deficit and current account deficit as well, and they were really into the doldrums as far as the economy of Pakistan was concerned. So it's not the government who is going to bring the changes, it's the public as well. Those who have to make their hands together with the government to make all of these changes, because if Pakistan is in grey list and if God forbid it goes into the blacklist, then the economic inflation will rise again. So yes, Pakistani people, they are not used to of these all these paperwork and doing these things, but in this global world now, this technical and other things they have to do to make hands, shake hand with the government and have to take out government from these troubles. So government is trying their best to bring Pakistan back into the fair list as well, or into the white list at the moment.
And then the actions against outlawed organizations has been that as well, and a lot of other steps that we've been taking, taking up action against Hawala and Hundi, for example. There are many things on that list that Pakistan has implemented.
One other thing I'd like to add to that is that when you have exit control at the airports, the enforcement of the currency limits has been made strong. The regularization of the banking procedures, making sure that if they're in any form of crisis, there is a contingency to deal with these sorts of financial institutions. These are part of a large, I mean, the report is 250 pages long and the appendices are 600 pages long. I mean, there are just so many things. The art is always to have that stamina during those long meetings to show and divert their attention to the important things we've done. They will always try to say, well, you should have done more here, do more. And we'll say, well, we've done this. So it's almost a game of stamina, and we've demonstrated that we have strong stamina.
Right. Do you see any areas of weakness that might come up in February in Paris?
I think that on all of the points that we have done, there is always some room to do more. And so where they might insist is, well, if you've regularized this thing, you should have really done that, and so on. And so the list of things we could do is another 250 pages. But that's not as important as the fact that we have signaled our commitment to a journey, to become part of the architecture.
Absolutely, and that's also been acknowledged by a lot of officials from the US and also FATF. And it seems up now that the two countries that are on the blacklist are Iran and North Korea. And naturally, if a country was on the blacklist, which hopefully Pakistan is safe from, there is serious repercussions for that. But that means that all the information, investors, access to finance, everything, banking institutions, that the country gets cut off from all of that.
Yeah, that would be like dark ages for Pakistan. If some countries in the blacklist, they have to suffer a lot because there is no investors from the outside the country, and there are too many hassles for them to go. And Pakistan is doing very good at the moment. When the government of PTI came in, and they are working so hardly to bring Pakistan back into the white list. And when we will get rid of this grey list, there would be more investments from foreign countries, more investors will be coming to Pakistan, and the economic conditions of Pakistan will be better soon, hopefully.
Right. Dr. Saab, will it generate more investment, like Naseem Saab is saying? You agree with that, and there will be better, more economic activity, etc.?
Absolutely, because when you have investments in your corporate or your sovereign sector, there's always a need for foreign companies to justify why they have picked you as an emerging market as opposed to others. And so the requirements that come with doing business in Pakistan become tougher if you are on the grey list, and certainly much, much higher if you are on the black list. So when you are on a regularized system, the white list, so to speak, then it is easy to conduct business. They don't have to deal with their own domestic regulatory authorities with the same amount of rigor. They can just say, we're investing in this country, and it's totally fine. So that ease of doing business is a big part of having FATF clear you off.
Right, okay. So the Governor of State Bank also spoke about the economy. Now that's a huge issue these days, because Pakistan has had to struggle a lot in the last 1 year due to IMF regulations and then all these FATF measures we've had to take. It's been a big kind of jolt to the public to have to adjust to all of that, and there were difficult decisions which needed to be made. But he said that a lot of progress has been made, and we've seen that with the current account deficit, there's a huge progress there that we're seeing. And also the stabilization of the exchange rate, that is also very big actually. Would you agree?
We have seen that stock market is doing very well, as it was doing in the past, but now nowadays you have seen that stock market is doing very well. The investors have come from all over the world as well. So things are getting better at the moment. They have kept the interest rate on the same as 13.25 as it was before. So the measures they are taken, or they have been taking at the moment, that are bringing positive result at the moment. And the people of Pakistan suffered a lot, and they are hoping for some relief as well. And when they have, the bad time has gone, as Prime Minister said that 2020 will be a better year for the people of Pakistan. So let's hope if the positive measures have been taken by the government or by the State Bank or the FBR or the other institutions, that will bring a good name for Pakistan as well, and that will bring some relief to the people of Pakistan as well.
Right, and Dr. Raza also said that inflation will remain at 11 to 12% with the target of 5 to 7% in the medium term, which is about 6 months. So when we talk about the impact on the common man, inflation is the key topic that you're talking about. So he's saying that it's going to remain at this level until the medium term. So within 6 to 8 months, would you say that there should be some relief for the common person who's experiencing, higher prices for everything in the market?
I anticipate that things will ease off by the second half of 2020 calendar year. But there are contingencies with that. It also assumes that we get on the white list. It assumes that the following tranches of the IMF go through smoothly, no hiccups come up, the regional security situation continues to ease up, and so on. So we make a lot of assumptions when we say that, and let's hope it pans out in that way. One important thing to look at as an economist is the misery index. The misery index is the sum of your unemployment and inflation. So unemployment is equally important in my view as inflation, and so the government has a tough job, but they're certainly committed to it in handling both of those issues.
Okay, so he also said that economic activity is increasing in export-oriented and import competing industries. So would either of you like to comment on that? How is that increasing?
The exports are increasing at the moment because they have put some bans on the imports. Most of the things we were importing were of not that much, they were not life-saving drugs or things to be used frequently. So they are just trying to increase their exports. So as far as they will increase the exports, definitely we will be having the foreign accounts in a better condition.
Right.
And as you said earlier that inflation will remain on 11%. That's a good sign as well, because it's not increasing. At least it's on a hold up. And afterwards, if it starts coming back, then it would be a good thing for the people of Pakistan, as they are suffering inflation, there's joblessness and price hike at the moment. So people want some relief, and at least there is a good news that the things have been on a halt at the moment. And if they start decreasing, then there will be a great help.
And he also said inward-oriented industries are slowing down. So your comment on this, the industries that are doing well versus the ones that are slowing?
Absolutely. So adding to what Sir said, it's important to understand that there are two types of imports we have. One are discretionary and one are just compulsory. For the compulsory things, we simply don't have a choice, and we're at the mercy of the global prices, such
like
as oil.
Right.
Exactly, oil. But there was a lot of discretionary imports, and that's because of a high degree of inequality in our society that's increased over time, and the government is trying to bring that down. So bringing the middle class, making it strong, and bringing the lower tranches of society up. So that is an important part of getting your import balance right. If our imports are discretionary, they're only satisfying a certain class that can afford those things. What we want to do is have robust domestic industries that can address the same demands. For example, it's completely possible for us to produce cheese and jam and these kinds of things. We don't need to bring these from abroad. So having strong local industries is the linchpin in having
Let me
growth.
ask you this, how long does it take for your local industries to catch up with the quality and standard that you get from the imports?
I think this is a very important question, because one thing we always have to look at is quality control. So it would become an export industry as well if we could have those quality assurances. The EU is always interested in doing business for us, as an example, but they always say that our quality standards are just not up to the mark, and so that's an important thing for us. In economics, we take it for granted that you will always have quality assurance, but in the developing world, it's always a challenge to make sure that what you produce is what you say you produce. And so I think that comes hand in hand. You're absolutely right. It comes hand in hand with our robust industrial growth.
Right. Also, in agriculture also, we're seeing that we're trying to convert a lot of our industry into export-oriented rather than imports. We're hearing about how certain regions of the Punjab are being made into olive-growing regions, etc. And then also in agriculture, where are the other ways that we can actually increase our exports in agriculture?
Basically, Pakistan is an agriculture country, and our land is very fertile. We can grow fruits here, we can grow vegetable, we can grow grains, and we can import all these, we can export all these things to the whole of the country. So rather exporting these things, we started making housing societies on the lands, and we are not cultivating on our lands. We are not using the latest methods of agriculture at the moment, which has been used all over the world. So once we start using that one, and we'll start exporting these products to the other countries, so that will bring more foreign currency to Pakistan as well, and then Pakistan will prosperous in that way.
Right. Any concluding remarks of yours, Dr. Saab?
Yes, I believe that we should remain vigilant as far as it goes with the IMF and the FATF. It's important because we've been on the grey list before in the past. We can always go back on it because there's always a negotiation process where they say you have done this and we say we do this. So what we require is continued political will to actually enter into the 21st century as a formal, robust, dynamic economy. And that requires a lot of sacrifice on the public's part, but it is possible.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Usman Chauhan and Naseem Siddiqui Saab, for joining us on this program. And just briefly, we'll talk about cricket. And in that, the Cricket Board of India, the Board of Control for Cricket in India, has objected to Pakistan hosting the Asia Cup in 2020. And that's for the reason that it does not feel that Indian players will be able to come to Pakistan. Otherwise, they did not have any other issue with the country hosting it. And they've requested that the venue be neutral, like it has been in the past. It's been held in Dubai in the past. In 2018, the Asia Cup was held in Dubai because the Pakistani players were not able to get their adequate visas completed to go to India. So we've seen recently a resurgence of cricket back in Pakistan, with the Sri Lankan teams coming to play matches here, T20 matches, and Bangladeshi team as well. So it's yet to be seen what the decision is going to be about where the Asia Cup is going to be held this year. So let's see what happens with that. That's all the time we have for today's program. Thank you for all of our viewers for joining us today on Newsroom. We'll see you next time.